Now he's come to office though under the magic of change. Do you expect that he will change a lot in terms of foreign policy? There's certainly a lot of expectation that the foreign policy of the United States is going to have a dramatic shift. Do you expect that will happen?
I don't think there'll be a dramatic shift, and I think we will find after a couple of years that the Obama administration has not changed American foreign policy all that much from the Bush administration, particularly during the last 4 years of the Bush administration. I think you will find that Obama will confront the same problems with many of the same responses, and people will be surprised in a couple of years' time at the similarities between Obama's approach to foreign policy and that of Bush, just as there were many similarities between Bush's approach and Clinton's approach.
Now, you of course had a very unique relationship with President Bush, not only personally but also as a colleague, in Foreign Office. Australia and yourself personally came to the forefront right away and stepped up in support of the United States after the terror attacks of 9/11, and many would say that was very beneficial to Australia in terms of the trading relationship that you had. I was wondering if you could elaborate as to how do you think history will judge George Bush on foreign policy and on economic issues?
Well, I think history will judge him on foreign policy a lot better than the commentators have in the last few weeks. He prevented another terrorist attack on the American homeland, and that was no small achievement. And everything that was done in the months and years that followed September 2001, it's got to be seen in the context of protecting America against a further attack, because everybody thought there would be a further attack. That's now been forgotten 7 or 8 years on. And in my part of the world, in the Asia-Pacific region, I think Bush's foreign policy was particularly successful. He managed to keep the temperature between Taiwan and China well below boiling point. He had a constructive relationship with China without conceding anything ideologically, and by reviving and strengthening the relationship with Japan and reaching out to India, he provided a very neat counterpoise to China without doing it in a way that was offensive to the Chinese. And if you look at the last few years in that part of the world, it has been a period of calm stability, and Bush deserves a lot more credit for that than he's been given.
Now, could you comment on how do you think history can or should judge him then in relation to the Middle East, in relation to Iraq and Afghanistan?
Well, I was a supporter of what was done in Iraq, and Australian troops participated in the operation in March of 2003. And Iraq is now, after some dreadful years, Iraq is now stabilising as a result of the surge, for which Bush received virtually no support around the world, and not a lot of support in his own country, but it has been successful. And if it is possible for American troops to be withdrawn in the next year or two in accordance with President Obama's timetable, well, it will be as a result of the success of the surge more than anything else. The big problem in the Middle East, of course, is Israel, Palestine. And there will be no solution to that problem while ever the majority of the Arab states refuse to accept Israel's right to exist. There has to be a two-state solution. There has to be an independent, secure Israel recognised by everybody, and there has to be a Palestinian homeland. And you won't get that until the majority of the Arab states accept Israel's right to exist.
And the goodwill that you talk about with Obama, is it possible that some of that will translate into more success in that region?
Well, I hope so. I mean, I wish him well. I want him to succeed. He's the President of the United States. It's the most powerful position in the world. He's entitled to what we in Australia say, a fair go. He's new. People are excited about him, and I wish him well. But he's got to be accountable, like everybody else. You can't govern a country on emotion and goodwill. You need those things, and they're very valuable, but you have to take the right decisions. And I think if he takes the right decisions, he'll win support. But he's going to find the realities of office very challenging, and some of the rhetoric will not be easily translated into deeds.
So America now, of course, is in the throngs of financial crisis. Many have said that the Republicans did not follow their own fiscal responsibility medicine. And how do you think history will judge America and George Bush's leadership on economic policy?
Well, my attitude toward running budget deficits is well known. I wouldn't have run a budget deficit in that sense. The approach of that administration and my administration was different. I do think that it would have been better if the American budget had been kept closer to balance. I know they had a war in Afghanistan and Iraq to finance, but I do think it's always good to try and keep your books balanced and try and deliver a surplus. So our differences, if you like, in relation to that are well known. I think the long-term question, though, is how quickly America can recover. I predict that although America has entered the recession earlier and more deeply than many other countries, I predict that America will come out of the recession more rapidly because it's such a big, unregulated economy. And one of the great strengths of an unregulated economy is that although it can go down quickly, it can come up very quickly. And the countries that are going to find it hardest to get out of the recession are the highly regulated countries that entered the recession with high levels of unemployment, like some of the European countries.
Mr. Howard, thank you so much for joining us here today and for sharing your valuable insights with Canadians at a time when we need to hear them the most. Thank you very much.
It's a pleasure.